Hello there, my name is Pavlo Shtermach and now we'll unveil the top news of recent days. The Council of the European Union adopted the 12th package of sanctions against the Russian Federation. Finally, the new package includes a ban on direct or indirect import, purchase or transportation of diamonds from Russia. It applies to diamonds originating in Russia, diamonds exported from Russia, diamonds transiting through Russia, and Russian diamonds processed in said countries. The ban previously agreed at the G7 level will take effect on January the 1st. Restrictions on diamonds processed in such countries will be implemented from March to September of the next year. To be honest, Ukrainians do not really understand why this ban was not approved much earlier. In my opinion, diamonds are not a product that is absolutely necessary. Yes, it is very difficult to replace them, but it was still possible to refuse before. Moreover, there will be further industrial use of Russian diamonds. Also, sanction package includes demand from EU exporters to prohibit direct export to Russia of particularly sensitive goods and technologies during sale, supply, transfer or export to such countries, with the exception of partner countries. Export restrictions for 29 new organizations that directly support the military industry of Russia. Chemicals, lithium batteries, thermostats, motors for drones, machine tools and parts of machines and mechanisms were added to the list of goods, the export of which is prohibited in the Russian Federation. We hope that EU diplomats have already begun working on the 13th package of sanctions, because as Volodymyr Zelensky said during his annual press conference, support from our allies will be important in the next year.
As for the European Union, well, the stakes were very high. We have acquired one victory as for the EU. As for the 50 billion, I am confident that we have achieved all of that. Now the question is about the time. The first 1.5 billion hopefully will arrive this week. As for the 50 billion, I believe and I'm confident that the decision will be taken in the nearest period of time when they will be having the session. There is some administrative aspects and nobody would be able to introduce any obstacles. And today we have mechanisms that even if there would be support to a 50 billion package minus one voice, there will be possibilities found in order for Ukraine to receive this money.
The 12th package is already traditionally cut due to compromises. A direct ban on the sale of tankers to the Russian Federation has not been introduced, and Denmark has not instructed to block access to markets for Russian oil tankers. These matters were discussed earlier, and we hope that will be introduced in the next package. The Speaker of the Parliament of Armenia, Alen Simonyan, will not take part in the meeting within the framework of the Collective Security Treaty Organization. This event is held in Moscow. Let me remind you, earlier the Prime Minister of Armenia hinted that he was thinking about leaving the CSTO. The head of the Armenian government said that the country will make a decision based on state interests.
If at the moment we have made or have not made any decision, then our guideline is the state interest of Armenia. If we, as members of the CSTO, cannot receive the help and support we need, while at the same time membership is insurmountable obstacle to receive help from other parties, then we must make a decision based on our interests. Nikol Pachinian, Prime Minister of Armenia.
Yerevan is increasingly moving away from Moscow and is looking for new allies in the West. After the defeat in the Karabakh War and against the backdrop of the Russian inaction of peacekeepers in the conflict zone, it seems that Armenia has decided not to rely on Russia in security matters. Putin has already stated that ending Armenia's membership in the CIS and the CSTO is unlikely to meet its interests. Putin believes that all processes in Armenia are connected with the situation around Karabakh. The head of the Kremlin, of course, diplomatically remained silent about the fact that this decision was made after the war in the region, which Russian peacekeepers did not stop. But it was Russia that Armenia hoped for, as we see in vain, because, as we have repeatedly said, Russia fulfills any agreement as long as it is beneficial to it. At the first opportunity, the Kremlin violates any agreement. And today, Putin met with the extended staff of the Ministry of Defense. I just want to quote a few theses from there. For example, the Minister of War Shoigu stated that during the summer campaign, Ukraine lost 159,000 servicemen as killed and wounded, 121 aircraft, 23 helicopters, 766 tanks, 2,348 armored vehicles. But in reality, we never had such reserves of equipment, and such a number of losses for the entire population of Ukraine would definitely have manifested itself in one way or another. In Russia, where there is 140 million people and 17 million square kilometers, any loss is not felt in distant villages, and Ukraine does not have such human resources.
The Russian Federation is losing entire military units, elite forces, paratroopers, marines, special forces, contract, 87% of the regular army, into which an incredible amount of money was pumped before the full-scale invasion and which was literally demonized in many countries, has been destroyed. Russia conducts endless recruiting in its perpetual prison camps, sending more and more convicts to the war. Russia is not advancing anywhere, piling up corpses and burnt wrecks of its armored vehicles. Yet we continue to read fabulous stories in the media that the Ukrainian offensive is not as successful as it could be, and that we should probably start negotiation with a murderer who is in shock himself. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine on social network X, formerly Twitter.
One more thesis. Almost 3 million people moved to the occupied Ukrainian regions. Shoigu calls them refugees and says that they have not seen their relatives since 2014. But again, it is interesting who he is talking about. About the residents of Crimea. So why didn't they see their relatives? Is it possible? About residents of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. But in 2014 there were a little more than 5 million of them. So who stayed in these regions? Therefore it is not 3 million refugees, but 3 million Russians who are trying to change the national composition of the occupied territories. But this tactic of the Kremlin is not new. They did this after the Holodomor of 1933 and after the Second World War and mass repressions of Ukrainians, when our territories were settled by Russians in order to tell now that Russians have always lived here. But it is not so, and Putin and Shoigu once again stated that Russia does not intend to give up its goals within the framework of the CSTO. So what are they? They were changed so many times in 2 years that no one knows them. Maybe you, maybe someone in NATO knows, or in the Kremlin. No one knows, because they are not there. Well, it is it, the destruction of Ukraine and Ukrainians. But no one dares to say such an open thesis. That is why they invented those interesting phrases about denazification, demilitarization and an attack on Russia. But again, it was Russia that attacked everyone. And I want to say one more thesis. The head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill, was present at the expanded collegium of the Ministry of Defense of Russia. The head of the church in the Ministry of Defense, because war is such a familiar story for any religion. Or it is not. But who cares about that in Russia? However, on the other hand, this once again confirms that the Russian Orthodox Church is a branch of the Russian Special Services, and all talks about Ukraine oppressing believers by banning the Russian Church is nonsense. We ban enemy agents, and anyone can go to church. According to the constitution of Ukraine, it is a secular state. That concludes today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated, comment, like and subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support really matters. Goodbye.